going to do a tiny little bit of housekeeping before we get started with Shelley. So real quickly, we had an incredible time at the Kentucky Derby. If you did not see Kathy's live interviews from the Kentucky Derby, I just have to say you missed out on something epic. 1 mint julep at 10 o'clock in the morning can really do wonders for your interviewing skills. So Kathy was on fire. It was so much fun. Our next event, we're going to be spending the day and the game with Brandi Chastain, all-time great soccer Hall of Famer, two-time World Cup champ, two-time Olympic gold medalist. So her new team, Bay FC, we're going to that game on July 6th. Then we follow that up with another meetup at the US Open in New York. And then we have our retreat. Our retreat is September 29th, and it is Living with Legends. So it's a very, very unusual retreat. There's really nothing like it on earth. It's 30 people that live with the legends. So our legends this year are Robert Hamilton Owens, easily the most interesting man in the world. Mace Curran, second female to ever fly lead solo for the Thunderbirds. Joe Jacoby, Olympic gold medalist. Megan Riley from Shark Tank. And Jackie Summers, who has the #1 most awarded liqueur in the world. So those are our upcoming events. If you missed the announcement the other day, we have our first sponsored athlete in true outlier form. Everyone who guessed that it was Tom Brady or some person like that, you're way off. So we picked the most outlierish person we could find, Gideon Kotkowski. Gideon is a two-time national champion in polo at Texas A&M. He was the captain of the Texas A&M polo team his senior year, and he is one of only 40 riders that were selected to ride in the longest and toughest horse race in the world in Mongolia in August. So we are the official sponsor. He will be riding across Mongolia with outlier paraphernalia on him. I couldn't get him to wear the platypus costume. I think that was asking a little too much. But we're fired up about that. And our magazine, Outlier Magazine, with Candace Nelson on the cover, comes out on Monday. So we are very, very excited about that. But today is a super special day. We've got an amazing guest with us, Shelley Paxton. Shelley was just the CMO at Harley Davidson. I don't know if you've ever heard of Harley Davidson, kind of a big deal. So she's the former CMO at Harley Davidson. She had the Forbes #1 book to read called Soulbbatical. If you have not picked up Soulbbatical, we're going to be talking a lot about it today, but it is incredible. She's a killer keynote speaker. She's a podcaster of Rebel Souls. She's an entrepreneur. She's a TEDx speaker, and she is just an absolute badass and so much fun to talk to. So before we get started, just so everyone knows, Kath, just pause for 1 second. Our format is a little bit, so I saw a couple of new members on here. Our format is 30-minute fireside chat with Shelley, and then we open it up for live Q&A. So you fire your questions, you ask them directly to Shelley. Just put in the chat, I have a question, and we'll tee you up with the great Shelley Paxton. Kathy, get us started. Shelley, what did you think of the intro?
Well, that was fun. That's
Right?
some that is some epic community and company to be in, as is this today. So thank you. Yeah,
Shelley, we
I
don't,
mean, I was already fired up. I had a couple of coffees before this, but now
right?
I'm like, yeah, now sitting down is hard. I feel like I'm levitating.
We're not
Thank
fucking
you for
around here,
that.
Shelley.
And
This is
you
the
are
real
not
deal.
fucking around. And thank you for that intro, like both what you said and the epic video intro. And thank you all for being here. This is so cool. I love this community. I have like all of the goosebumps.
Well, this is so up your alley. I mean, you are the rebel queen. So so many questions to ask you, but I'm gonna start here. I think so many of us can relate to we work our whole lives to kind of grab that brass ring. And I've got to believe, like being the CMO of Harley Davidson. So, as you say, like Harley Davidson, that's a brand that people are so loyal to it, they literally get it tattooed on their body. Like you're the CMO of an iconic brand. Um, but reaching that goal for you, you found out it really wasn't the brass ring that you thought it was going to be. Um, so when did you know that in your tenure there? Because you were there, I think, 6 or 7 years. When did you realize this isn't really what I thought it was going to be? And it's actually kind of sucking my soul away.
Yeah, I think I know now that I'm not alone in feeling these things. I will say I 100% felt alone and thought I was alone when I was experiencing this. So, just for so timeline, you got it right. I was at Harley for 6.5 years. I left Harley just over 7 years ago. So just to kind of put us all like in, give you context for the timeline of this, and to answer your question, Scott, so about 3/4 of the way through my tenure at Harley, I started to feel like everyone was looking at me, kind of putting me on a pedestal, and I got it, right? It was like I got to like pierce my nose and walk into the boardroom in boots and leather jackets and ride motorcycles around the world. And like you said, like serve this iconic brand that people love so much they tattooed on their bodies. And there came a point where I was waking up in the morning and I was seeing all of this from the outside, but I was like, I felt exhausted. I felt empty. I didn't feel this fulfillment and this joy and this happiness that I expected to feel finally getting to the C suite. And until the nightmare woke me up, which for those of you who've read the book, that's where the book starts. It starts with this crazy nightmare. If you haven't yet read the book, spoiler alert. And that's what kind of like really shook me to my core and made me realize that there had been many points in my career where that were kind of these reckoning points where it was my body, mind, soul that were kind of screaming out, and I was ignoring it all because I was chasing what my parents told me success looked like. I was ticking all of the boxes of traditional success. It looked like all the accolades and all the titles and more zeros on the paycheck and all the things. So yeah, at first it felt really good because I was like, oh my god, I was brought in to help Harley become a truly global marketing organization. And it was also post divorce, so I went through this really traumatic divorce, and getting recruited to come to Harley in this really senior role was a way for me to get my mojo and my badassery back. So honestly, I think the reason it hit me later in my time at Harley was because I was like glowing from this idea that I was reinventing myself post divorce, and I was borrowing all of that equity from Harley And in the meantime, completely forgetting and losing the plot on who Shelley Paxton was.
So, for you, you talk about authenticity a lot. And tell us about how that experience was not fulfilling that authenticity. So it seemed on the surface like, oh, this is a perfect spot for Shelley. She's a badass, she's a rebel. But it wasn't authentically who you were. Where was the disconnect?
Yeah, I think I mean, let's talk about what actually was working. I mean, when I look at it in hindsight now, and I've done really deep work on my values since I left Harley, and I realized that my top 3 values are freedom, authenticity, and courage. Harley got me pretty close. So it's no wonder, like, I look at that now and I say, oh, well, it's no wonder that I kind of felt like I was moving in the right direction. I was working for a brand that supported everything I didn't yet know that I was inside, but it wasn't fulfilling in here, right? So I think I was chasing Harley because I wanted Harley to remind me that I was a badass. I wanted Harley to make me happy. I wanted Harley to, tell me how cool I was. I now say values over validation. We choose values over validation because that is a lesson I had to learn the hard way. So I now see so clearly that, yeah, it was authenticity in quotes because it was aligned with who I was, but it was not who I was. I was really like, I was putting all of my eggs in the Harley brand and just drawing on that instead of really understanding who is Shelley? What do freedom, authenticity, and courage, which I didn't understand at the time. I didn't do that work until after I left Harley, but I wasn't listening in here. I wasn't asking myself the question about what truly would light me up and fill me up and bring me happiness. So I just kept getting deeper and deeper into doing this thing that was making me look cool and bringing all the stuff that I actually didn't realize was never going to make me happy and it was never going to fill me up. So, I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I just wanted to go a little deeper into how I was feeling because I guess the real rub is that it wasn't authentic at all. And at the same time, I have zero regrets. The one thing I am so clear on is that was all meant to be my journey. I spent 26 years in the corporate world, and that was meant to be my journey. And so much of the work I do now is paying it forward. Like, what do I wish I would have known about success and about leadership when I was sitting in that seat as a VP, as CMO? That feels authentic. Now I feel so authentically on the Shelley Paxton mission in the world. And I say I quit so you don't have to. I know I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, but that's what I say to entrepreneurs, to academics, to corporate leaders. I'm like, I quit so you don't have to. I want to share forward what I learned. So maybe a roundabout way to answer what you asked, Scott, but I hope there's some nuggets in there.
No, it's great. So I'm gonna skip. I was gonna ask you this question later, but based on what you just said, I'm gonna ask it now. So I think a lot of people think that they can't find their best life in corporate America, and that the only way to find it is to jump off the cliff and be an entrepreneur. And for some people, that's absolutely the path they should take. For other people, it's absolutely not the path that I think they should take. So, do you think that people can find their best life in corporate America, in the confines of corporate America?
Yes. And I say this knowing that that's a really broad spectrum. right? Because you have super conservative people still celebrating busyness as a badge of honor, hustle and grind, working 100-hour weeks, all the way to much more progressive companies who are trying to invest in the mental health and well-being and cultural shifts around their culture and their employees. So I say that knowing that it is easier said than done in some places. What I really, what I care about every day when I show up, when I talk about my work, when I speak in any room on any stage, is that we get to choose as leaders, and I'm talking all of us. We get to choose as leaders to be a part of the change or not. We get to choose what we want to model and being the ripples of impact that can not only change how we show up in our lives, how we show up for our teams, how we show up in our corporations, in our companies, in our organizations, how we start to shift culture, and how we together shift the broader culture of the world. That is a choice. So I'm super passionate that we get to make those choices, and that in some places, and Harley was one of these places, I didn't have all of the insight and the understanding, and certainly not the language and the tools that I do now when I was there. But Harley was one of those places where it would have been hard for me to immediately start showing up in the way that I do today and practicing what I do. But there are things I could have done differently. And especially sitting at the leadership table, there are things I could have fought harder for. So I do believe that we can make a difference. And you know what? Honestly, this is such a personal choice. And that's why I say I quit so you don't have to. But this is a choose your own adventure, right? Rewriting the script of success to be infused with more humanity and well-being and soul is going to look different for every single one of us in this community and beyond. And that's the beautiful thing, right? Success, my success currency is now impact. I suspect it is for a lot of people in this community. And Scott, I know it is for you. I know it is for you. It's why you create this community and do the work that you do. And so we can make choices and show up in different ways. So I say the new ROI is ripples of impact. And we get to choose to be a part of that or not. I feel like that is calling to be certainly my next keynote, if not my next book. But yeah, it feels like there's so much power in that idea.
There is so much power in that idea. Tell us, it's the title of your book, but tell us what a Soulbbatical is.
Yeah, well, this is a good story. And Scott, I think when you and I first met, I probably shared this story. So what I thought Soulbbatical was when I created the name, and I'll tell you all that story, and what I know Soulbbatical is now are two wildly different things. So I'm going to take you back to 2016, the year I left Harley. And when I finally made the decision, I had been having this nightmare that rocked my world to the point where I was drinking myself to sleep. I was a shell of a human being. I was afraid to ask for help. I felt very, very alone. But after I asked for help and I started going to a doctor and I started pausing and I started listening to myself and getting quiet through some meditation, and I really started to understand what this nightmare was telling me, I knew I had to pause. And I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't have any role models or mentors who were like, yeah, you could take a sabbatical. You could do something like looks like this. I actually, at the time, I probably could have taken FMLA leave, but I didn't even understand that because mental health and well-being was really not a conversation in the ranks of Harley. And so I decide that I am really going to honor what I saw in my nightmare, which was a proxy for my soul dying. And I just went, at the time I was 46 years old, and I thought, holy shit, if I get to 50 and I feel like this or worse, and I can barely get up in the morning, I'm not sleeping, I will for sure be a functioning alcoholic at that time. I'm well on my way. All of the signs were there. And I just thought, I can't live with that. So I have to hit the pause button, but I didn't have language for it. So when I finally, told my family, which was my first step, and I was divorced, like I said, and I was talking about my mom and my dad. Well, my mom and dad come from a little tiny blue collar town in Ohio. My dad was the first in his family to go to college. He worked his way up to becoming a very well-known CEO and chairman of big brands that you all know. Probably the most famous is Haagen-Dazs ice cream and Pillsbury. And he had a very storied career. And so I was handed one success script, and it looked like, you're going to keep doing this until you're the CEO and chairman of this company. And that's what my dad kept saying to me. He's like, you're meant to be the president of Harley. You're meant to be the CEO of Harley. And here I am having an absolute breakdown, realizing that is not my path at all, but I can't see my path. All I could see was that I was waking up every day just trying to pretend I had my shit together. So when I finally make this decision to leave, there's a Greek chorus of people around me saying, no, you don't do this. You don't leave one job without another job. You just don't leave CMO of Harley Davidson. Who does that? And I'm like, I guess me, because I don't want to meet the me in 4 years if I keep going down this path. I don't want to meet that person. I think I don't even know if she'll be alive. Let's be honest. And so I make the decision to leave. I make the announcement, and then I'm sort of faced with what to tell the world. So I've always been a creative. I've always been in advertising and marketing. And so I literally wake up and it was like the universe delivered on my bedside table this language, Soulbbatical. And I was like, that's it. I'm not really going on sabbatical, and I'm not going on vacation or paid time off. And I'm going in service of really understanding who is Shelley Paxton and what does her soul desire. And that's where this mashup word, Soulbbatical, came from. And it's what I started to tell the world. I said, I'm going on a Soulbbatical, and I'm becoming chief soul officer of my own life. Because I was so title sensitive at the time that I knew if I had a title that said, this is important, if soul was in my title, I was going to listen. I had a responsibility and an obligation to listen to my soul. And so it's still a title I hold. And it's my favorite title I've ever held. It will be my forever title. I invite any of you, I saw in the chat very briefly, I love that title. Feel free to use it. Honestly, put it on with any other title. It's to remind you of what is in here, to remind you to stay true to your values, your truth, your essence in whatever path you choose going forward. So now I'm going to fast forward us probably a number of years into my journey. All of a sudden, it was probably when I was writing the book. I spent the majority of 2019 writing the book. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Soulbbatical doesn't mean leaving your job. It means finding yourself. And so I suddenly had this epiphany. And since then, I've written this. This is a definition that I hold in front of me. I put it in front of me on my desk at all times. And it says, a way of being in full alignment with one's soul. It's a conscious choice to live and lead with greater authenticity, courage, and fulfillment. That's what Soulbbatical is. That's the new definition and what I invite everyone to live. It's truly a way of being and a choice, a series of choices we make every single day in our lives and in how we show up.
Shelley, the statistics I think are alarming of how many people are disengaged at work. And to me, it's just another way of saying that they're not fulfilled. in one way or another. So they're choosing to disengage. What advice do you give people who are feeling that way? Like what are the practical tactical steps that they should take to try to figure out what you figured out?
Yeah, well, let's start with values, because what I wish I would have understood before is even having conscious awareness of what my values are. And then saying, am I making choices in my life and leadership that are aligned with these values? So I hand anybody and everybody in my path who will accept it the one pager from Brene Brown, her Dare to Lead list of values, which is available for free on her website. It's a downloadable. I use that in all my work. I talk about it from every stage. I give it to all clients. I hand it out in workshops and basically say, I know it's really easy to look at this list. I think there are 100 some words on this one piece of paper. And the challenge isn't picking 15 that resonate with you or even 10. The real challenge is when you have to get down to 5 and ultimately 3. That's what I say. What are your top 3? So wherever you are in your life, in a situation that's not feeling very good, especially, give yourself a pause. And I'm literally talking about an hour in a day. I'm not talking take a lot of time off work. Give yourself, like, instead of watching that series on Netflix, or instead of doing the thing that you're only doing out of guilt or obligation, instead of putting everybody else before you, take a pause, take an hour first thing in the morning over your, your cup of coffee or your cup of tea, and get clear on what those are. Because that, to me, also then helps you to create boundaries in your life. So I love to say, I already said values over validation. The second choice we make is boundaries over burnout. And I think that's where a lot of disengagement comes from. It's because people are just fucking tired. They're just tired. They're so exhausted and they can't see a way out. And so I now so clearly understand that I didn't really understand what a boundary is. I know we talk a lot about it, but the best definition I've been able to kind of mash up is what's okay and what's not okay in service of your values and your well-being, period. And so those two things, getting clear on your values and getting clear where you might not have the right boundaries in place to support those values and to support your own health and well-being and your own fulfillment. I mean, I can go on and on about all the exercises and tools, but I'll start with those two.
Very, yeah, phenomenal. So you use the word rebel a lot, and rebel to me, outlier, rebel, kind of the same thing. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I feel like this is the blessing and the curse of my life. It's an absolute blessing in the context of this community, because I just know immediately, like, you are my people. I am your people. Like, we connect on that level because we know that we think differently and we look at things differently and we show up differently. And I love that because I understand, like you guys do, the power that's in outlier and rebel. And I think where I have had to work maybe a little harder than I expected, because I've always been a rebel, where I have had to work hard is in helping people understand, what do I mean when I say that? So there are two aspects of that I'll talk about. Like, one is, I feel like, first of all, we're fighting the old kind of James Dean, arms crossed, black leather jacket, outsider, troublemaker, leaning against the wall, funny brick wall, right? So I love all of that imagery, but I also realize it's not helpful. And so one of the epiphanies I had on this journey was that that's rebelling against that kind of old old troublemaker stereotype about a rebel is like, you know, you're playing on someone else's terms. You're like kind of shutting down. It's disempowering. You're over here like this, not engaging. And the radical shift and epiphany for me was in this idea of rebel for. And I was like, wow, that's it. That's what a new rebel, and in the context of what you all do, that's what the outlier is, right? It's you are rebelling for. And even when you say it, you lean in. It's forward motion, it's empowering, it's energizing, and you're playing on your terms. In fact, I would argue that every one of us, we're creating the terms, we're creating the category, we're creating the game we want to play. And so that's now how I talk about rebel and this idea. Like, my signature question is, what are you rebelling for? And I really get people to lean into this idea of thinking through who you are, what you want, and the impact you want to have in your life, your business, or maybe even the world. That's what you're rebelling for. But you got to figure out what's in here first before you can even kind of speak that into the world and start playing the game that all of you are already playing. So that's how I think about it. And we get to define our success script in service of our soul story. That's what the new rebels and the outliers do. So, sermon over. I feel like I go to church every time. Sorry, you guys. I get so fucking wound up. I love this stuff.
You are helping so many people, because so many people are in those places where they need this advice, they need the nudge, they need the encouragement, and they need to hear from somebody like you. So you're just helping so many people, and you're fulfilling, you know, that goal of making an impact, which is so beautiful. People, I think,
my heart is
are
pounding. I was like, woo, I was on a roll. Thank you guys. I see all the preaches in the chat. I was trying to look down at the chat, but thank you. I appreciate that.
People are apparently sick of me, and they want to ask you questions. So are you ready?
100%. Let's go.
We got a total outlier coming at you. So she's currently in Cleveland, works for a big company, works for Visa. She's like, nah, I'm gonna move to France. She's moving to France soon. Shonda, you're up.
Uh-oh,
Shonda,
I can't hear
don't know
you,
what,
Shonda.
you're not on mute, but we can't hear you.
Nope. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. I think I'm having some internet issues. First, let me say thank you, because your story is my story, literally. It wasn't enough to just escape, you know, the job. I have to escape the country because I'm done. but my question to you is, how did you figure out what you wanted to do? Like, once you figured out, because 2024, I said, it's all about my value system, right? Like, after a lot of prayer and like meditation, I was like, this does not align with my values. If it doesn't align with my values, I'm not doing it. So how did you come to a place where you understood what you wanted to do, like what your purpose was?
Oh, girl. I first of all, I feel like we need to have an offline chat as well. So
we do.
Yeah, so please connect with me. And I mean, obviously that invitation goes to everyone, but Shonda especially. I mean, everything you just said. And girl, I escaped to lots of countries when I left Harley. I traveled for like 8 months until my dad got really sick. And so what I realized, and I'm just saying that I didn't move anywhere, but I traveled around, and I was like, oh shit, like the old adage, wherever you go, there you are. So I love that you're already doing the work, because I figured kind of, I was trying to outrun myself, and you're already in the work. So bravo for that, because you're further along than I was at the time based on what you just described. The other thing I always say, and I know every time I say this to someone, I'm reminding myself of this as well. Every badass accomplishment is a series of tiny steps. So literally follow the breadcrumbs one tiny step at a time. It is the only way. And I'm not even going to say I got where I am today, because I don't even know what that means. I'm still following the breadcrumbs and figuring it out every single day. So pay attention, be in awareness about what lights you up, follow those, see what doors and portals that opens up. Honestly, girl, that was my whole journey and still is to this day. And I know when I feel out of alignment, it's because the breadcrumb was there and I was like, yeah, but this other shiny object is over here. And I went back over there instead of following what I knew was, aligned and felt good in here. And usually that was because my ego was like, oh yeah, but there's money over there, or there's, blah, blah, blah. We all know that story. So what I invite you to do is continue all the things that you described and continue to slow down. The greatest piece of advice I got early on in my journey is slow down to speed up. And I doubt those are new words to anybody in this community, but they continue for me to still be powerful to this day because I need that reminder. So really let yourself slow down and be present and see those breadcrumbs and follow them. I do an exercise called soul fuels versus soul sucks. That might be another gift to do this. Like really get clear on what lights you up and what are like the energy vampires in your life, right? The people, places, things, activities. And I do that as an audit every single quarter for myself. So continue to get clear on what lights you up and follow those things, and those breadcrumbs, I promise, are going to lead you. But it will probably take some time. It took years for me. In fact, I'll share this with you. It led me to initially starting a coaching business. And while I love being on this journey with people, I realized, especially after COVID, I was like, I do not want to be sitting behind my computer all day long on Zoom. That is not who I am. That is not what lights me up. And given that impact is my success currency, I need more one-to-many. And then I reminded myself that I am a Second City graduate. I reminded myself that I spent 26 years on stage. I was like, girl, you're missing a big piece of your business, which is getting back on stage. So it's the forever lesson, right? But follow that energy and listen deeply. And I have no doubt you're going to be doing things that light you on fire. And I cannot wait to witness them and support in whatever way that I can.
Oh, thank you so much. This is such a great session. And I tell Scott and Kathy, you're stuck with me. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm in France or whatever.
I did. Truth be told, I had a mini panic attack when I found out Shonda was moving to Paris. I said, does this mean we're going to see you less or not see you?
No.
And she promised. So now in front of everyone, she's promising that will not happen.
I love
Thank you
it
so much.
Scott Raven, you're up with Shelley Paxton.
So I'm sitting here thinking, damn it, why did I not know Shelley in 2017 when I was doing my one success script as a functioning alcoholic, getting laid off, which ultimately landed in the hospital? Why did I not know her in my 2017? I'll put it that way. But
yeah, because Shelley Paxton was kind of in the same shoes as you were, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and I still think trying to figure it out every single day. But obviously, a lot of connection to your story as I went through that. Where I've landed is that I'm now focusing on driving my impact through middle-aged men and trying to reassert this fact. You are one person with multiple roles, and each of them has different success, whether it be family or finance or fitness or fun. Here's the challenge that I'd like to ask you about since you made it to the C-suite. When you talk to the folks who are in the executive level, they feel they are owned by their company. They can over-prioritize work because they have to make sure that they save face, for lack of a better term. So the question is this: how much, when you're at that level, should it be you are one person and you act one way, versus how much do you compartmentalize and say, this is my work, this is my family, this is my life, so that you get the best connection to soul?
Oh man. Well, I feel like we could talk for 7 days about this question. It's a beautiful question. So thank you. And it's right up my alley. First of all, thank you for the work that you do, because we need more conversations. I don't feel like men feel supported and psychologically safe to have more of these conversations. So thank you for that. I want, this is my view, and I hope all of us can step into this and help others step into this. I want more of the latter that you described, more C-suite executives who want to create these psychologically safe spaces so that you can be a whole human as a leader. So when I say celebrate success with more humanity, well-being, and soul, you nailed it. And I'm saying that's my language around it, but I don't think, as Shelley Paxton, I'm the only one who can do this. I know this is going to take all of us to get to this place, and especially the C-suite leaders who are in those roles today, to say, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to have these conversations, because I know how much compartmentalizing I was doing. And you said a word, and I was kind of laughing at myself. I'm like, wow, I got 44 minutes into this conversation and didn't say this. You said should. And a big part of my work is like, we got to drop the shackles of should. First of all, we have to recognize what they are, that word comes up again and again and again. Well, I should. And my personal, I talk about mine very openly in the book, or at least my 3 big ones, and one of mine was, I should bend over backwards making personal sacrifices for the sake of my work. Exactly, Shonda. Stop shooting all over ourselves. That's it. And so I think some of it starts there, because there's this old narrative, this conditioning that says leadership should look a certain way. You should compartmentalize these things and only show up as a fraction of yourself. And it's like, but we are humans, and we're beautiful in our big, messy, blurry, imperfect humanity. That's why I love Brene Brown, because she's somebody who's like, we just got to embrace this. So, yeah, I guess I think that's answered your question. I really think we've got to create more awareness around the shoulds and that conditioning, and then help more leaders and more of us to continue to show up in a way where we're calling bullshit on that. Did that answer your question, Scott?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Sure. You too. Thank you.
Alan Goff in Colorado, you're up.
Hey, first of all, I just feel so grateful, Scott. Thank you for putting this together and allowing all of us to learn from Shelley and the people that we get to engage with every week. It's so fantastic. And Shelley, love the story. Just ran across you. It's never coincidental when things overlap. I just started reading Learning to Love Midlife, and I started looking into Modern Elder Academy, and come to find out you're an instructor there. And so I just love all the synergies, and thank you for your energy and your insights that you shared today. I'm curious, it sounds like when you left Harley, you already had this concept of taking a Soulbbatical and kind of owning that as a next step for you. Did you intend to write the book when you left Harley, or did that develop after the fact and you finally put it all together?
This is one of my favorite parts of the story. So thank you for everything you said. And I'm so glad this is resonating. Yeah, no coincidences ever. Listen, we're all meant to be in this room together right now, and I love it. So it is really funny. This book, no, I had no idea. Literally, all I had was a word. I swear to God, a word and a prayer. Like that, when I left Harley, I felt very alone and unsure and very terrified. Like, let me be super clear that, the confidence with which I speak now, and I can share this language and I can share so many insights from my journey, are hard won over 7.5 years of, what you guys know. It's the roller coaster that we ride. So what is interesting about what you asked, Alan, is that I said to the CEO of Harley, so I told them I was leaving. I said, please don't give me a counter offer. This is not about Harley. I actually said to them, I feel like this is my second divorce. I love Harley, but I can't be with Harley. I need to get to know Shelley Paxton, and I need to understand and fall in love with her again, which of course to Harley was sort of like, she's a fucking cuckoo. Like, what is she talking about? They were like, we're a little nervous for you. Are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know, but I feel like I'm going to be more okay if I take these steps. And the last thing I said to the guy who was then the CEO of Harley was, and I think I'm going to end up writing a book. I've always wanted to write a book, and I don't know if it's going to happen on this journey. Maybe this journey is the reason, or if it's just going to give me the time and space to breathe. And one of my big goals in taking this time off was to reconnect with my creative spirit, because I felt like I used to always love to write and create, and I've been a lover of language. And I was like, you guys all know this, like suddenly your whole life is a PowerPoint slide and some goddamn bullet points. Like, that's my whole life was presented that way. And so it felt like this liberation. It was the first of kind of many ways I felt liberated. And then I was talking so much about this journey over time that I one day, while I was doing some consulting in 2018, one of the guys I was doing some consulting with ultimately went on to Simon and Schuster, and they started this imprint. The imprint doesn't exist at Simon and Schuster anymore, but they were kind of this rebel upstart imprint that wanted to work with more first-time authors. And I didn't even know it, but he pitched my story and the idea of Soulbbatical to the publisher. And before I knew it, I was writing my very first book for Simon and Schuster, which is a bonkers story, and one that's like a pinch me moment. Things were a little nuts after that, and I will make a shameless plug. 4.5 years later, Simon and Schuster is finally putting the paperback out into the world. So it's been a wild ride, but I feel incredibly fortunate. But that's how it happened. So on May 28th, the paperback of this comes out. You can pre-order it now, or if you think this would resonate with anybody. Actually, I think, Scott, when we booked this time, it was supposed to come out today, and then Simon and Schuster switched it to May 28th, which is fine. And alongside it, I'm gonna release a self-published, what I'm calling a companion. It's a workshop, it's a workbook called What Are You Rebelling For? And it takes more of this language in the constructs and exercises and tools and puts it in just an easy, you can hold the two together, and you can go deeper into the work. So that'll also be coming out like later May, maybe early June. It's a wild ride.
We are excited for it. All right, we've got 3 more questions, 9 minutes. Bruce in Portland, you're up.
Shelley, love your energy. It's interesting. About 19 years ago, I took a Soulbbatical, but I didn't really know that it was that at the time until hearing you going through a divorce and just trying to do a lot of the things that you did. Now, my question is, the timing of your book is interesting. Right before the pandemic, I'm wondering, how did the pandemic reinforce your decision to remake yourself?
So, really good question. And I'll talk about what it was like to publish. So this book came out by design right before, and almost on 2 weeks before my 50th birthday. And that was by design. I said to Simon & Schuster wanted it to go faster, and I said, no, I actually want to make a point that you can reinvent yourself midlife. You can be figuring this shit out in midlife. And I want to make a big deal that I was turning 50. So anyway, then 8 weeks later, the world shut down, and all of my dreams of like book tours and events and whatever came crashing down. And what it took me a few months to realize, maybe more than a few months, I'm probably giving myself too much credit, more than a few months to realize, is my book was in the world exactly when the world needed it, because a lot of the world, not all of the world, but a lot of people were kind of on Soulbbatical and asking themselves these really difficult questions about what really matters to me, because that's at the heart of my work, is what matters most to me. And do I want to kind of create a life, not kind of, do I want to fully create a life that is in alignment with that? And so it took a while. I mean, I'm just a believer. I used to have these grand visions of like New York Times bestseller and whatever. My book has absolutely been recognized by Forbes, and I feel really honored where it has been recognized. But I know in my heart of hearts, when I say impact, that my book finds its people exactly when they need it, period. And I've gotten really comfortable. So if my book sells, 50,000 copies or 5 million copies one day, I'll just know that it found its people when they needed it most. So that's one thing. The other part of your question is, I had already made the decision that I wasn't going back to corporate. By the time the pandemic hit, I was fully in kind of solopreneur mode. I'm always in that mode. And I had a lot of awareness and learnings around what I really loved and what I didn't. So coaching was a great example where I was like, wait a second, I don't want to set up a full-time coaching business. And so as the pandemic started to, as we started to come out on the other side of that, getting out on more stages, teaching, I happened to meet Chip Conley during the pandemic, and I went and spent 6 weeks at the Baja campus because they weren't doing programming. They were basically doing what they called sabbatical sessions. And I went down there. And so obviously that then was something that I continued to do. So it really changed the nature of my work, but it didn't alter the decision that I was going to keep going forward and just commit myself and my life to this mission of rewriting the script of success.
We're going to Chicago.
Awesome.
Mark Holden. And then our cleanup hitter is in the UK, our favorite actress, Isabel. So, Mark, you're up.
Shelley, I just got to ask you, what kind of coffee do you purchase? Because I want some of this too. No, your energy is absolutely palpable. We all love it. Listen, one of the greatest things about being in the Outlier Project is that it's a bunch of very strong people, mentally strong, curious, empathetic led, and that we all share wisdom. So then the net benefit is that there's experiences and there's more opportunities around everyone at the same time. My question for you is, in late 2000 teens, how did you reach out to others? How did you structurally connect and triangulate what it is that you were doing so that you knew faithfully that there was a right choice to leave, a massive company, a strong position? How are those people in your life?
So I love that. And I got to find out where in Chicago you are, because we're going to have to connect. I'm sitting in Bucktown. Where are you?
I'm in the Loop. Well, South Loop.
Oh, okay. So my energy is my superpower. So even though I do love me a good Nespresso in the morning, my energy is my superpower. So thank you for saying that. It reminds me that what I'm doing is what I'm meant to be doing. And two, finding community. It's honestly, Mark, the reason I wrote the book was because when I first started down this path, my only community was other people who looked like me at Harley. So they were all looking at me like I had 10 heads, going, why are you doing this? Why would you leave? Like, you make good money and blah, 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 all the stuff that we all know. And so it was through finding, I literally step by step, breadcrumb by breadcrumb, we're finding new communities. And so each year, I give myself my own personal and professional development budget. I always have a coach. I always have a community. In the early days, it was more of a coaching and kind of extraordinary leaders community. It was called 4PC, read by the Outlier Project, did not exist at the time, led by a guy named Rich Litvin. And so for about 3.5 years, I was a part of that, and I loved it. very different feel than this. That was much more people who wanted to be in the coaching space, but I knew I found my people who were going to help me, you know, level up and challenge me and inspire me and get me to that next level. And right now, my choice has been to be in a speaking community with really high level speakers, because that's the part of my business I want to dial up. And it has a very community aspect as well. And let's be honest, I got to get my ass in the Outlier Project. So that's coming too. So all of these things combined. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I just keep every year I sort of reassess, who am I spending time with? Am I being challenged to constantly go to that next level? Am I learning from the people I'm a part of? And so community has been honestly, the only way, because a lot of days I sit alone, and I have an amazing loft here in Bucktown, but I sit alone going, what in the ever loving fuck am I doing? So I need people around me who are reminding me why I do what I do. And kind of bringing me home. So I hope that answers your question.
1,000-fold.
I can see magical things happening in Chicago. That's all I'm saying.
I love it. I love it. I'm down for it.
Isabel, in jolly old London, how are you?
Well, it is quite jolly today because we actually have some sunshine, which is unbelievable. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Shelley, amazing to meet you. Did you mention Second City? That's my question.
I did.
Okay. So if I may prompt something for you, which is to put that on your, I don't see that on your LinkedIn profile. Am I wrong?
I don't think it is on my LinkedIn profile. I tell it very briefly in the book because it was in my early 20s. Yeah, I'm curious why you say that.
Because I think it's a huge skill. And I think it makes a lot of sense of why you made that connection between being, it stayed with me because of course the context for me, I'm obsessed with anything to do with stages and theatre. And when you said I knew I had to get back on stage, that connection for me made complete sense. And it makes so much sense of you've improv'd your way. And that's a compliment, by the way, obviously.
Thank you.
To where you are now. So I'd really like you to add it, and I'm going to give you a recommendation on LinkedIn as well, because
oh my gosh, thank you.
I've loved hearing you. So that was my question. That was it. Is did I hear you right? And is it in your profile? Because it should be. Because you
thank you.
Yeah, of
you
course.
know, I don't really even dial it up in my bio, and this is why we're mirrors for each other. And Isabel, thank you for that. I really appreciate it, because I talk about it in the book, and I say it was the best training every single leader in the world should do, even like an iota of improv, because it prepares you for the fact that you're never going to have a script in life and all of it. So thank you for that. Yeah, I will dial that up in my bio and on my LinkedIn profile. I appreciate that.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
The great Sarah Blakely makes everyone do like a stand-up comedy thing at Spanx. And if you subscribe to our magazine, which is free, on Monday, you just might see Sarah in Outlier magazine. I'm just saying, you might.
Congratulations on the magazine too, Scott. That's incredible. Oh my God, I'm excited.
This hour, man, where did it go? That flew by. Shelley, that was tremendous. So helpful. It's a combo of your energy, your knowledge, your passion, your authenticity. You are a total outlier. This really was a special hour. So thank you for carving out the time for us. It means the world to me. And everybody, not only go buy Soulbbatical, but make sure that you leave a review, because reviews mean an awful lot to authors. So make sure you do that and be on the lookout for all the other good things coming.
Thank
Shelley,
you.
you're the best.
Thank you for having me. It was so great to spend this time with all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The rest of my day is going to be a letdown. This
The rest
much
of
I
the day, just
know.
take the rest of the day off.
Seriously, I should.
You should.
All
You
right.
should.
Mwah. Thank you
All right.
guys. Thank you
We'll
so
see ya.
much.
See ya.
Bye.
Take care.